Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here continuing with the mental health awareness series. I love doing this with a live audience. I love seeing you guys here and I love having my favorite people come on to join. I'm super excited to be bringing Amanda Gilbert on. She's incredible. She's the professor of mindfulness at USC. She's an incredible meditation teacher. She's coming out and I know she's going to have a ton of great stuff to share with us. So let's give her a second to come on. What's up?
And hello, everyone.
Great to see you, Amanda. How are you?
Oh, I'm so happy to see you too. I'm doing, as well as possible given our current climate and conditions. And I am so happy to be arriving to this really timely conversation that you're putting on. So thank you for really, really drawing our attention here, Ben. How are you doing too?
Oh, I'm great. I'm totally great. I'm really grateful to be working in the mental wellness space, and really grateful for all the opportunities to be putting my skills to the test. Are you feeling that too? Like really putting some of the things that we teach to personal practice lately?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I feel like everyone is being stretched to some of our greatest capacities to date. I'll speak for me personally. I mean, just knowing that, in a sense, being a longtime meditator, I've been meditating for 17 years, and there's been an underlying knowing within me that, I said, well, I've definitely cut out for, going through adversity and being in solitude. I mean, going on a lot of silent meditation retreats over the course of my practice years has really, in a sense, given me a taste of what it means to be in quarantine and to be in solitude, but not with this like global sense of just total heartbreak and suffering, and not with like the global feeling, that I feel deeply within my heart. So, it's been a time of like really deep holding for me, and I know I've been stretched like never before too.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to say hi to Darlene and Andrew and Frank and Nicholas. Hi, everybody. Good to see you guys. If you have anything that you want to ask Amanda or myself, pop it in there, and we'll let the conversation lead there. So Amanda, I first of all, I really appreciate your response, because there is this global experience. And something that I've been really aware of, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is that there's so much data and so much information and so much content that we don't really know what's totally true. I've been finding like the discernment work, what to do, all of that, that's really coming up, like what to listen to, what kind of action should we individually take. What's coming up for you around that?
Yeah, I mean, one, learning to deal with a lot of uncertainty. To your point, there's so much information that we're all consuming, and where it's coming from, whether it's true or not, we're all going through this like filtration process. At least for me, I find like it's been a really deep filtration process of, number one, what discernment can I practice around what it is I take in? Actually, I think that's number one, is what do I take in? And then two, dealing with the filtration process from there of understanding, is this trustworthy? Is this true? How does this feel within my body? How does this register within my heart and body and mind? And also learning how to navigate uncertainty in like such a deep way, because the landscape is changing, especially at the beginning of this, it was changing like hour by hour, and for sure day by day. And I feel like now we're at this new, kind of like this newer phase of things where the information, it's not like it's slowing down, but I think like we've all settled in, and I don't want to say we've adapted, fully. Like we're all in this process, I think, in our own individual way, but there's some sort of like recognition that things are going to be different, and there's a lot of unknown still. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I think at the really like deep root level, I've been seeing for myself in a lot of students and a lot of people I've been practicing with, like really sitting and squarely looking in the eyes around this question of like, how do I relate to uncertainty? How do I relate to the unknown? And more deeply, especially from the meditation and mindfulness perspective, you know, the question is like, how do I relate to impermanence? How am I with the state of impermanence?
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of that, especially, you know, the idea of impermanence is really coming up for me too. Adapting to the unknown, like you're giving really, really good stuff. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is what we've already been teaching. You know, you're a professor of mindfulness at USC. You're a really prolific meditation teacher. You've taught a ton of people mindfulness. You do a lot of work with mindful eating also, which I think is really interesting. And you have a book coming out at early next year, right?
Yeah.
In 2021.
Yeah.
So I want to get a little bit of, for those who don't know you, for the audience listening, tell us a little bit about how you became, I'm going to preface this, okay? I want to ask where it all came from for you, how you became a meditation teacher, how you got to USC. And this is why I'm asking, because something that I often say is I didn't become a meditation teacher. I didn't write a meditation book because I was already enlightened.
Mm.
I had to go through some stuff to come here, you know? And so I want to hear a little bit more about like what your process was, what drew you into this kind of work.
Mm. Well, I'm just like really relishing this moment too, Ben, because we've both been holding a lot of space together here in Los Angeles and, you know, nationally too in the US. And it's been so wonderful to walk the path of practice with you too. And you also are such a wonderful teacher. And I'm so excited for your upcoming book as well. So there's just a really sweet emergence right now for me also, just connecting and exploring, you know, both of our paths in a sense. And I think, you know, I think for me, it's been a really interesting reflection process because like you, I get asked this question a lot, you know, how did I become a meditation teacher? What was the direct linear path to making this a career and teaching full time? And now there is such a thing as being a professor of mindfulness. Like that's new.
Yeah.
This is brand new, you know, brand new stuff. And we're in really novel terrain, I think, still in the meditation and mindfulness world. And so, you know, I actually love reflecting back on the fact that it was very organic. Everything has been organic for me. And I feel like in our generation of teachers, this is something that's still like very true. And we hear a lot of this in I think our colleagues in the circles that we share with and teach with, and a lot of our friends. The next generation of teachers, I feel like there is more of a career path. There's an abundance of meditation teacher trainings out there now. You know, you
Right.
can sign up for this one and then take the next one. And there's like, you know, there's a lot more available. But I think in our generation and the generation before us, generations before us, it's been so organic. And for me, I actually literally bumped into meditation at the end of my high school experience. It was like during my senior year of high school. And I was at a really unique homeschooling situation in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. And I was taught how to meditate by local Appalachians, Native Americans, and a prince from Africa and a South American elder who was teaching this really beautiful curriculum to us as high school students down there. And it was the first time I had ever been asked to turn my attention inwards. And I was, you know, I was like 17 or something, and we were all like sitting in a circle. We were asked to close our eyes and turn our attention inwards and notice what that felt like. And there was something that was really interesting in that moment, to say the least, where it was the first time I felt like that deep sense of settling and that deep sense of stillness. And I touched like awareness for the first time. And I always remembered that, you know, I always remembered that moment. And looping back to what you said too, you know, what drew me to teach and what organically happened for me at even to become a teacher was through my own process of being like a really messy human being. It was through going through, right? It was through going through really hard time, especially in my early adulthood, you know, coming to that moment of like completely questioning who I was as a person and going through a really difficult moment. And from there, I remembered that moment of stillness and peace I had experienced in high school during meditation. And from there, that's when I got serious. So to your point, like, I think like some of us get really serious about our practices and about our mental health practices in particular when we need to, you know, when life kind of throws us these experiences where we don't really have a choice. And I've actually come to call that moment, this moment of beautiful choicelessness, like we're backed in the corner, or we're completely, you know, down and we're hurting, we're suffering, we're in pain, and we've encountered like a deep obstacle in our life's path. And we're sort of forced in the most like beautifully painful way. We're like totally forced to get serious about our health and our wellness and our well-being and our happiness and our road to recovery and healing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started to teach really from that place too. I started to get asked by a lot of friends and family members and colleagues when I was doing research on meditation at the University of California, San Francisco. I started to get asked quite a bit, you know, what's up with you? What do you do? Like, like, what's going on? Like, what do you have for lunch? What, you know, yoga studios do you go to, et cetera? And like, I didn't really have a clear answer for any of that. But the question really begged after, you know, some hearing it over and over again and getting asked it many times, it kind of begged the answer. Finally, I was like, oh, like they're asking me what makes me me. And by that time, I've been a meditator for like 9 years. So I was like, oh, well, I'm a meditator.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a question about that. First of all, so much of what you just shared really resonates for me. And I hope that some people within the sound of our voices, maybe especially those who are in that messier part of their lives, can know that this is, first of all, it is genuinely transformational. The amount that you put into it, you will get back. And I really love what you said about how organic it is. It was totally organic for me too. I was in high school. I had a meditation group, you know, and it grows. And it's like in AA and the different 12-step programs, they say it's attraction, not promotion. I was never promoting meditation. I was never like, woo, 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 you should meditate. It was like people were like, okay, so you're different.
Yeah.
What's up? You know, they started to ask. And you know what you said when you were like, when you said you started to realize, oh, they're asking what makes me me. That is, that's so interesting because for me, I want to know if this resonates for you, if it rings true for you. Meditation was kind of private. It's kind of private for me. Like it was a little bit out there, I think, in some ways, like a little bit misunderstood. I think in a lot of ways, on a larger scale, there's still quite a few people who are still very new to the concept, which I think is completely fine. That's why all of my books, that's who they're written for. You know, it's written for the beginner's mind, you know. But did you feel that? Did you feel that your practice was something that was a little more intimate, a little more personal?
You know, in the most interesting way, I was taught to meditate in a group setting. And so my relationship and my introduction to meditation was with sitting with a group of fellow high school students and with a group of elders and sitting in community. And wow. So I learned my foundation, my first experiences in practice were in community. And to your point, I feel like that's also very unique, you know, that's a unique part of my story. And though, after that, it was many years of practice in solitude. And I reflect back quite a bit about this, that, you know, I would go on meditation retreats and go sit with like 200 people in these week-long meditation retreats, go receive teachings and sit with teachers. But then that would be like 1 week out of the year. And then the other 51 weeks out of the year, I would be sitting every single morning by myself in silence, in my own stillness and in solitude. And it was just kind of my experience. That was like really largely my experience too for the first like 6 or 7 years. However, I don't feel like I was really like, kind of undercover about being a meditator. I was never like vocal about it, to your point. I didn't really feel like the need to do that because it wasn't as talked about when we were first beginning to meditate. But when people, when they asked, when they found out I practiced, I would share. And I feel like what you're really pointing us to, and what was my experience also, is that our presence as practitioners, that's what speaks the loudest. Just like me being asked, like, what's up with you? What do you do? How are you, so like happy or peaceful, or how did you handle that really stressful moment in our work meeting with such grace and discernment? And it was, what I was found really fascinating was, even though my practice was in solitude, people, once they got curious about it, they would just want to know more, and they would first, like, their awareness would first pick up on it from my presence. And I know it sounds like that's the same for you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that for me, a lot of what came up was how I would apologize, especially there towards the beginning. I remember what characterized my experience was really that the mistakes that I was making, I felt like this immediate remorse for, and I wanted to articulate. I started to, I don't know when it really developed, but I remember a few specific instances in high school, especially, where I was totally misunderstood, and mistakes happened, and I made mistakes, and like, problems came up. And I remember when things happened and I did something wrong and I did something unconscious, I remember I wanted to write a letter and be like, that was not my intention. I'm sorry. That's not how I really feel, and I would want to really clear the air. And for me, as I look back, that was the thing that people started to say things. I remember my principal at school, I got in trouble for something, and I got in trouble a couple times. I had behavioral issues, whatever. And I remember apologizing for something, and my principal was like, I haven't seen 45-year-old adults who could apologize with as much integrity as you just displayed.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that and being like, geez, that's weird. People need to grow up. We learn to apologize when we're like in kindergarten. You gotta learn that, But as I grow up and as I know what it really means to let go of your pride, acknowledge the reality of that problem. There's this problem, I think, today, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I think that there's this, because there's so much religious trauma, where no matter what tradition you were raised in, there's a lot of different traditions that have this very disciplinary type of quality to them, where we start to internalize shame and guilt, and where there's something wrong with me, and I'm damned forever, and I'm broken, and I'm bad, and so because we're sort of evolving out of that consciousness, there's the polar opposite happening, where it's like everything happens for a reason. There's no mistakes. You didn't, and I, while I agree in a general sense with those two statements, I think remorse is a good thing. And I think we do need to apologize, and we do need to name and acknowledge and recognize dysfunction when it shows up, Have you seen that kind of thing? Like this sort of like counterfeit positive psychology. There's good positive psychology, but then there's this sort of like shallow positive psychology that bypasses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the common phrase is spiritual bypassing, like really taking that step back, taking our hands off of any responsibility or accountability for our words, thoughts, deeds, and actions. And, also being bystanders to, to actions and speech that we don't feel in alignment with. And so I've actually even lately been really witnessing that aspect of being a bypasser, but as a bystander, allowing things to go on, and just kind of like turning away from it, or not using your own voice or your own values or your own ethical system and ethical compass to stand up and to say that, this, I don't agree with this, and this isn't right, or in my perception, in my view, this isn't right, and here's how I feel about this. And so I think, what we've been really working on in the meditation, field over the last many years is really undoing this belief that was adopted, that meditation is a very like passive practice. And I actually just got a message about this today from a student and a follower over Instagram, and he was like, what's your view on what's going on as far as social injustice in the world? And do you have to, do you encounter this, and do you have to talk to other spiritual seekers about this? And just what's your view on this? And, my answer to him, and has been and continues to be that meditation is not a passive practice. If anything, just like what your experience was, getting in touch with your integrity and navigating those feelings around this is what feels right to me, this is what I stand for, I do want to take accountability, I do want to apologize, I want to course correct in the way that feels good for me. That's all very, very action oriented. And if anything, I think meditation and our practices really asks us not to bypass when we get really honest about our ethical values and our own internal integrity system, really. And it asks us to not just allow or let things happen around us, but it asks us to be in action around our views and around our values and around our ethics. And I think this is really I think what we're also stepping into, as far as really living our ethics and our values, especially from the meditation perspective, is that the actions are actually what's healing. The actions are what is healing. Again, standing up for others, stating your view, being active and being an active participant instead of a bystander or bypasser, I think is actually a really healing way to approach this topic.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, well, first I want to say hi to Alex and Karen and David and Andrea. Thank you guys for being here and for all the emojis you're sending in. Hello. So if you have any questions about what we're discussing, pop them in. We'll incorporate them into the conversation. But back to what you were saying, Amanda. Yeah, I think that tuning into our ethics, having an ethical core, establishing an ethical core, and allowing that, what I sometimes say is, I'm a student of, I say collaborative religious studies. So comparative religion with a tendency toward how do we agree? How do the different traditions agree? Collaborative religion. So yeah. The idea, there is a notion of the higher nature and the lower nature. In Buddhism, we sometimes talk about the monkey mind, and the wise mind, in Christianity, we sometimes talk about the natural man or the flesh and the spirit, the higher nature and the lower nature, the fact of our dual nature. And what I think, the way I like to describe it is the meditation practice allows the higher nature to begin to tame the lower nature. The way I see it is the higher nature was never born and will never die. Whereas the lower nature was born when the body was born and will die when the body dies. So the lower nature has that fear, that temporary experience, that fear of death, Oh yeah, someone just said it's a library off Library Wars. Yeah, we're both in our little libraries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's that idea that I really think that as we meditate and really meditate, because there are some things that are not really meditative techniques, and so it goes into meditation is not all there is. I think community, accountability, you mentioned elders, I think elders are huge. I think mentors are huge. I've been supported dramatically by my relationship with Marianne Williamson.
Right.
What she's provided for me, just by her living in the level of integrity she operates within, and then me being in that field. I'm not like deifying her and saying she's a saint or something, but she holds herself to a high standard, and she holds everyone around her to a high standard, you know.
Right.
So there's no bypassing. You know, I don't experience the spiritual bypassing, and so I therefore have that mirror neuron experience with her, where like I feel like I have to really look within and take inventory and be responsible with my own behavior and interaction and everything. And I love what you said about the action is what's healing. You know, you can meditate, but if you continue to behave in the same way, the healing's incomplete. If you continue to live out of integrity, if you continue to operate from that lower nature, then no integration has taken place.
Right, right, right. And I feel like that's really it's like we're at this current wave of practice right now, especially from the mindfulness and meditation perspective. And we are leaning on these branches of meditation that haven't been really talked about a lot over the last many years. We are starting to lean into the heart practices like kindness, like empathy, like compassion, and like big compassion, especially right now, a type of compassion that is so connective, and that is really pointing us to our inherent interconnectedness as human beings and just beings on this planet, you know, not excluding any living being on this planet. And also, to, like you were saying, like our ethical system too. It's one of the things I actually love about Buddhist psychology in particular is the the Eightfold Path, and really exploring that aspect of practice. And that is starting to come into the front lines in the meditation and mindfulness field of considering what our right view is, or right speech, or right action, and practicing non-harm towards ourselves and towards others. And how do we embody that as a practitioner? And it starts within, we start actually within the field of the mind. And I mean, this is one of the many reasons why I loved that you're doing this month-long conversation about mental health awareness, is that, we really live our lives from the mind. We perceive our experience from the mind. And so, our practices around mental health are really practices also of how it is we relate to our daily life experience. And I've been really contemplating lately this aspect of Buddhist psychology, which is one of the terms for mindfulness, which is bhavana. It's the Pali word for mindfulness, which means to cultivate and to grow. And so in a sense, like, what are we growing? And currently, like we were just saying, we're starting to actually finally kind of break up the meditation conversation and include things like we're growing qualities of the heart, we're growing interconnectedness, compassion, kindness, we're growing integrity, we're growing ethics, we're growing our own compass of values. And these are the types of things that we're actually starting to cultivate in our mental garden currently. And I think it's so timely. It is so timely.
I think it's huge too, I mean, and then there are people who are like on that cutting edge,
Yeah.
and I think that's one thing that Marianne did demonstrate by bringing some of these qualities into the political conversation when she ran for president, and also when she ran for Congress a few years ago. And I think that that's what I find really inspiring, is like, just like you said, the action is what's healing, it's not just the idea. It's like, I can know about stillness, and I can know about the power of stillness, but the miracle of stillness doesn't even happen in the practice of stillness. It starts there, but then it happens in my life as I practice stillness. It happens in my life outside of stillness is where the magic happens. It's kind of like working out. You go to the gym, you've been working out for a little while. When you go to open that jar of peanut butter, you don't have to say, all right, muscles, we've been working on this. This is your moment. Open this jar of peanut butter. You don't have to be like, go gadget, muscles, activate, open the jar. Yeah. You just do, because you're stronger. it's just a little easier. Moving that couch is a little easier because it's just a little stronger. You're just a little stronger, you know? And so with the actual cultivation of mindfulness, it's like you start to feel you're more sensitive. You become more sensitive, of course, physically, you know, the practice of mindful eating, which I love how much work you do in mindful eating, super important. I've been so blessed by practicing mindful eating. When I do it, I should do it more. But the sensitivity that's developed bleeds into other areas of your life, and you do become more sensitive to your own conscience, more sensitive to your own personal guidance system that says, hey, maybe I shouldn't be in this situation. Hey, maybe this relationship actually isn't right for me. You know, hey, maybe I should apologize. Maybe I didn't communicate that as lovingly or as effectively as I could have, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. The more aware we become of our own inner system, our own inner landscape, the habits of mind, our emotional reactions, the way we respond, the more easily, to your point, we're able to make that into our baseline of being. So it's more automatic, like you're saying with the muscle and opening the jar of peanut butter. It's like our muscle of being is more of a state of kindness, like our automatically reacting toward and responding towards ourselves. I mean, it starts within. It starts really, you know, it starts in this mental training. If we can learn to meet our own thoughts with kindness, if we can learn to meet our judgment mind with kindness, if we can learn to meet our inner critic with kindness, our self-sabotaging tendencies with kindness and compassion and empathy and spaciousness, and, you know, a little bit of like love too, like that real tenderness of love, then, you know, we're training to do this within, and therefore we embody that and becomes the new baseline. And it's like muscle memory when we're encountering other people and they're, you know, they're having whatever moment they may be in, we're actually embodying that baseline of kindness then. So I love that you bring that in.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think that's the concept that can sometimes be corrupted by like immature or shallow thinking, because just because, please be gentle with yourself, like really, but just because you're being gentle with yourself doesn't mean it's cool that you just did that. You know?
Absolutely.
Part of being a person who's taking their life seriously is renouncing dysfunctional patterns. Right?
Yeah.
It's overcoming the self-sabotaging. And it's not just self-sabotaging, I ate an entire bag of potato chips, blah, blah, blah. It's not just that. It's also, I was judgmental and harsh and unkind. I lost my shit in that moment, you know? I totally fell off my center, and I was inappropriate and unkind and judgmental. That is self-sabotage. Do not do that, you know? And that's actually, you know, I was really fortunate to be raised in a household that had like a little bit more of like a metaphysical interpretation of the Ten Commandments. And I remember my mother teaching me about thou shalt not kill. She was like, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this or that she was perfect at this. She'll laugh hearing me talk about this. But I remember her telling me it means don't let anger take you over. Thou shalt not kill doesn't just mean don't go kill that person. It means don't let anger take over. Yeah.
Yeah. Because anger, I mean, it cancels out, you know, it cancels out kindness. It cancels out love, you know, when we're acting from that place of anger. And it gets back to what we were thinking or talking about with that cultivation, you know, when we're cultivating our values, our ethics, and our minds, like in our mental health and wellness, you know, we're also pulling out these roots of unwholesome, you know, unwholesome tendencies like anger, like greed, like delusion, like ignorance, you know, and to be so like compassionate and forgiving with ourselves, because this is a messy process. It's One of my favorite aspects too, actually, my mother also used to say this to me a lot growing up. She was really heavily involved with the Landmark Forum, that the personal growth organization. And she used to always, you know, say over and over, she goes, Amanda, to be human means to be perfectly imperfect. You know, can we allow ourselves, can we be in the practice of being perfectly imperfect? And that really stuck with me because it gives us that room to be in that active cultivation. We're cultivating, we're like identifying the weeds, we're identifying our, you know, jealousy, our judgments, our moments of, oh, I could have said that in a different way, or I wish I'd done something differently. We're identifying those weeds and those roots, but then we're giving ourselves the space to you know, work with them and to tend them and to learn how to meet them with compassion and kindness and forgiveness if needed. So, you know, it's a really, it's a heartful time right now because I just feel like we're all in this kind of process in our own way, like, because being in solitude, being in quarantine, getting back to way what we were talking about like long at the beginning of this conversation, you know, how are we doing in this moment? What's the train look like? I don't know about you, but there's been like a real bumping into a lot of these deeper roots within us because we've all been like, we've all slowed down and we are spending more time alone. So I've actually been seeing this and hearing this a lot, and for sure have encountered this in my own experience of like really needing, you know, that stuff that is still there, and therefore having to practice in like the deepest way, you know, for many of us ever. So
Right.
yeah.
You know, and I think that you said something really, really important that I want to reiterate. You said a lot of really great stuff, but especially it's in the behavior, it's in the action where the healing happens, you know.
Yeah.
It's like right now, it's like, be gentle, be so gentle with yourself right now.
Yeah.
And in my new book, my new book, I have one that I'm writing right now that's not coming out for a little while. I'm talking about non-judgment, specifically in this particular way that you're bringing up, like looking at the weeds in the garden. Being really present with that weed doesn't mean I allow it to remain in the garden.
Oof, absolutely. Yeah, amazing.
You know, it means
yeah.
It means I'm being really mindful to make sure I get the whole thing out. You know, I get all the roots out of it. I really, really remove it. And so I think it is about those actions. You know, it's about taking the action, right action. You know, like doing the right thing. You know, we need more of that. We need more of it. You know, and I also want to bring back to the, you know, as we kind of wind the conversation down, I want to bring back the idea that, you know, you and I are both very successful teachers. You know, we're super successful. We got all living the dream in a lot of ways, right? Hey, Sa. Hey, Sylvia. Hey, everyone who's here. Thank you for popping in.
Oh, amazing.
He's a sweetheart, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, Renee's on too. Beautiful. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Sa.
But yeah, this idea of really walking the journey and letting the change happen through us, you know, letting it really actually genuinely take place. We're the people that have organically been drawn to group meditation, organically been drawn to these things. If you're drawn to this, follow it, you know, do your best to practice the non-attachment to outcomes when it comes to competition, things that you're seeing out there. Let it integrate. Don't ignore the things that come up, because the things that come up are what refine us. It helps us become better. When we see someone who's excellent, don't let it intimidate you. Let it inspire you to become more refined and improve.
Right. I mean, absolutely. And this is, I mean, we're in a really like thin, like veil of inner work, a lot of us, to your point, because the more work that we do, the more inner work that we do, the more in touch we are with all these levels of emotion, nature of mind. When we get more clear on what's actually happening in our internal landscape, it actually requires more work. I think a lot of people, and myself included, I remember like way at the beginning of my meditation and even just like health and wellness like endeavors or interest or passion or journey, I was like, oh great, when I stop drinking alcohol, everything's going to be perfect. Or when I drink that green smoothie in the morning, everything's going to be wonderful. When I meditate every single day, everything's going to be absolutely like perfect. And I was really disappointed. I was so disappointed at one point that, especially after, you know, doing XYZ and letting go of alcohol was a big one for me. I really thought that was like the root. You know, I was like, oh, okay, great. The last impediment in my mind, you know, that I had this whole story going on. And I was like 3-4 months in, I was like, wow, I'm even more aware of like, of like all this stuff that I'm holding. And so, you know, to your point, but like the more we grow and the more that we, you know, we see people who inspire us and, you know, they're experiencing success. Oh my gosh, this actually points me to something that I've really been cherishing lately in my own practice. And it's what I'm writing about in my upcoming book too, is this quality of appreciative joy, of sympathetic joy from the Buddhist perspective of the four Brahma Viharas, the four immeasurable, limitless heart qualities that I just think are so transformational. One of them is appreciative joy, which means, can we actually genuinely and authentically celebrate someone else's success and happiness? You know, can we actually step into that vibration of having genuine joy for another person's just their happiness, their success, the good things that are happening for them? And that requires, especially I think in modern terms, like, you know, it bumps up against our comparison mind, our jealousies. Why am I not doing as good as them, or XYZ, whatever the stories are? If we can actually take that step back and put down like the stories of the ego and use our awareness to call all that stuff out, like those roots out within the gardens of our mind, you know, it's so liberating and it feels good. And it actually moves us into a place of being able to really, really hold space, I think, for other people's success and happiness like no other as well. So thanks for bringing this in, Ben.
Absolutely. So insightful. Thank you so much, Amanda. How can we find your website? Where can we find you? What's the deal?
I mean, gosh, please say hi as much as you can. It's my website's amandagilbertmeditation.com, and that my IG handle is this, Amanda Gilbert Meditation. I can't wait to connect with everyone more. It's been such a delightful conversation, Ben, and thank you so much for holding this month long. Like you're going big, you're going long. You're in it for the long haul this month. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's important, and I get so much out of it. I got so much out of our conversation today, and thank you so much, and thank you everyone who was watching. Follow Amanda, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.